All right, Mike. How we doing? What's the numbers looking like?
Well, the Nielsen people did just get back to me, and the numbers are not what I expected because the problem was, as it turns out, that we were not actually, in fact, on television, and so the ratings are just sort of a zero.
But
Um,
it's
and
it's
this
right there in the name.
well, I know, and I thought that was all you had to do. I mean, I thought this was TV production basically, and it
Yeah.
turns out this is a problem because the investors did expect something. They kind of expect anything really, just something that wasn't zero. They expected. So the long and short of it is that this will be the last episode, and
So no Netflix special.
no Netflix special. Amazon Prime have pulled out, and when are we on? By the way, is it because I'm on German time, so it's like we've got at least 55 minutes, right? Because I haven't had any dinner, and
I mean, I'm in that kind of post-conference state where I just really want to get home, but I'm also like,
oh, I know, right?
oh crap! Actually, we're live.
And Antonio says, "But oh shit, right."
Ah! Don't swear. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to FDG-TV. This is episode 4 of season 1. I don't know why I said it's season 1. It explicitly says it on my notes right here. I'm Tommy Thompson. That's Mike Cook, I think.
Hey, everyone.
Yep, cool. Right, we got the names right. And yes, welcome. This is the very last episode of this season of FDG-TV because the conference is over.
Yeah, it's been a long week. It feels like it only just started though, just like every conference.
I feel like you get to that point of elation of, oh, good, right, because I'm tired and I really need to go and recharge, but also like really severe sadness because then suddenly you can't really, well, we're not going to be able to do this anymore, and then we don't really get to, have more guests come in and more correspondence and talk about cool stuff and
Exactly. Yeah, it kind of peaks sort of you get more and more settled in as the week goes on, and you're hanging out with friends more and more. But also, like you're saying, the tiredness also peaks, and so they kind of both crash into one another at the same time.
I kind of get to that point where like I'm really dying in the first day or two, and then I hit my low, and then I start getting better, and then it actually dips a second wave, and then I end up writing myself. Like I don't write myself until I get home. I always find that conferences are the best and worst experience because I always come back like physically exhausted. And mentally too. And then the worst bit is we don't even have that excuse because this has all happened from the comfort of, I was going to say our own homes, but no, you're in the office.
I am in the office right now, but I watch most of FDG from home. But that's the thing, I think it's still taxing, right? It's still like a big part of our job, paying attention to all these new ideas and socializing with people. It's a massive drain. And we hope at the very least that today's episode will again give you a chance to relax and wind down. That was the aim, wasn't it? To give people a little bit of relaxation.
That was the aim, to kind of like cap off the whole event, because let's face it, we had the closing words from Antonius earlier on, but FDG doesn't really end until I press the end stream button in the corner.
Exactly.
Really, I mean, or until Paperbot dies.
Paperbot will never die. I will keep Paperbot alive forever. Paperbot lives on in my heart.
Dear. But yes, hello to everyone who's tuning in. So great to see people are still with us as we are now past the official FDG period. I'm just going to quickly bring up a couple of our talking points. So like we said, it was the end of FDG 2020. We have the beginning of the FDG 2021 preparations, potentially even some rescheduling. We had a panel on designing games for remote play today.
We did.
We also had a keynote from Deirdre Quanstrom, who's the general manager for Minecraft Education.
Fantastic keynote.
Yes, very exciting, very interesting. And then just as we were saying there, it's like, right, we want to kind of wind down, we want to kind of chill for this one. We also then just so happen to have had the most packed schedule.
Absolutely, Tommy. I mean, we're going out with a bang. Like, we know everyone else is feeling tired, but you and me are more full of energy than ever, right?
In theory, once I finish drinking this, absolutely.
Yes,
also,
exactly.
I just realised, the whole week, the FDG TV has actually been inadvertently sponsored by Nuclei.
Of course.
And it's also being sponsored somewhat by AI in Games this evening. But, yeah, we actually have... How many? Wait, we still have 2 guests, but we also have a bumper number of correspondents.
Exactly, including some secret ones not on the docket to celebrate the transitions between conferences.
You did put all of them in my docket, right?
Yes, they are, yes.
Because last night I didn't have the full set, and everyone's like, oh, we've got some surprises. I'm like, you really hope if you tell me, because I've got to press the buttons and everything else.
I did try to get Janelle Monáe on to do a live set, but unfortunately, Janelle was not available. But everyone else on the docket is arriving, so it's going to be a great show. Good.
Is everybody here yet?
I believe our first guests are good to go. And that should be, we're going to get some reports on that panel you mentioned, right?
Yes, we will do. Also, I'm just quickly checking through the comments. Christoph Salga says that Mike has a super relaxing voice.
I feel the same way about you, Christoph.
Yeah, Bueno says, let's make another conference for next week.
I'm up for
that. Remer Van Rosen says, here's hoping for a season 2 renewal.
Fingers crossed. Start petitioning NBC on Twitter right now. They won't have a clue what you're talking about, but we'll appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be, I think some other niche TV shows have had to really, really fight in order to survive either on Netflix or get like their special TV, like their special one-off movie. But I think we've got a big steeper hill to climb in our particular situation. Okay, right. Let's actually get down to business. So we're going to jump over to me. So we're going to welcome our first correspondent for the evening, but actually this is something a little bit special. We're actually doubling up. We're having 2 correspondents coming in together to hang out with us for our first segment. And this will be really interesting because I have no idea how this is going to go. And I actually didn't originally prep the stream setup for the idea that we had more than 3 people in the setup. So it's going to be absolutely insane, but it's going to be so much fun. I'm very excited for it. Currently looking at my top production team, and we're waiting to see what happens if actually our guests turn up. But here we go. They're coming in now. Fantastic. There we go. I was beginning to worry it wasn't going to happen. Okay, so please give a warm welcome to our first correspondent of the evening, a familiar face, Assistant Professor of Digital New Media at Georgia Tech University and Sullivan, as well as newly minted Assistant Professor at Northwestern University in Chicago, Kate Compton. Everybody, say hello. Obligatory honks. There we go.
Welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
And you were so good last night that we brought you back.
Absolutely.
Good to be back. I'm sorry Zoe was supposed to be here, but she apparently had nothing to say.
Also, getting offers from Hollywood, I assume, at this point, things like that.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think we missed out. Like, we didn't get the Netflix deal, but Zoe did.
Yes.
Also, yes, Henrik has just pointed out, anyone else catch that huge daddy long legs behind Tommy? It is currently about 4 feet above my head, and I'm really hoping it just kind of fries itself on that lamp that I've got.
Sorry, that was one of the special guests I mentioned, Tommy.
Well, this actually happened. This did happen we had a guest earlier in the week. I think it was maybe when Anastasia was on with us at the start of the week. Somebody might have noticed I did briefly kind of look like this during the call, and that was because this thing was right just off camera. Anyway, also it's super great to see Kate with us, who, despite now moving over to Northwestern in Chicago, is like really repping the Santa Cruz at the moment. I'm really digging it.
Very good.
I just don't have a Chicago hat yet.
So you were both on our panel today, right? That was designing games for remote play, which is obviously super relevant to all of us. And many of us were playing games together this week at FDG. How did the panel go? What kind of things came up?
Yeah, well, so Anne talked a lot about crafting, because it turns out that crafts people have, well, A, she's Anne, B, but B, it turns out that craft people have been creating very diverse communities of hanging out and doing things remotely for a very long time, and that there's just like a lot of different ways that people communicate through crafts. And it turns out a lot of those port very interestingly to the virtual space. So things like having an object that everybody is working on together, or having like remote work that then they bring to a central location. So yeah, we're seeing like a lot of different ways that people are setting up communications online. There's just so many different ways to set up societies.
Wow, that's fantastic. Who else did you have on the panel with you?
It was a long time ago.
I can tell you who you had on the panel.
I think Christoph was there.
Christoph was there.
Jose.
Jose Segal.
Kate was there. Jesper Yule.
Love Kate Compton.
Yeah.
Jesper Yule. Yeah, very cool. Okay.
Crap. Am I forgetting anyone? Please.
No, I
correct
think that's the panel.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure that's the panel.
Sorry.
That crafting
It
stuff.
was at 7 a.m. this morning.
Christoph says in
so early.
Christoph says in the chat, and I told her, whatever you do not talk about crafting, but none of the panelists listen to me at all.
It's true. It was in a special email, like, please don't bring crafts into this again.
Don't do
I
it.
mean, we talked about board gaming a lot, so there was a lot of discussion of how do you do board games, and what is it that we miss about board games that we're not getting in the digital space.
Yeah, and virtual tabletop tools were brought up a lot. Also, I thought there was an interesting discussion about how this, playing remotely has been affecting adults more than children, and how, kids already do it, like they already play remotely fairly regularly. So for them, it's less of an issue. And it's, for us old fogies who are now trying to find ways to connect with our friends that we haven't connected with remotely before.
There's a really funny age thing happening at FDG where we had the Minecraft keynote today, and there were very different responses to Minecraft to very different age groups within the research world. I found it quite funny.
What's a Minecraft?
You know what? That actually reminds me an awful lot of is it Roblox? Like Roblox is one of these things that is absolutely huge, both in terms of like fun, just it's a fun game, but also as like this kind of framework within which people can build their own experiences, and like anybody above the age of about 14 almost doesn't know it exists.
It seems like it happened just like in the last year. I'm not sure when it became big, but like its prominence as a coding and social platform really just happened maybe a year ago, or possibly it's been happening for 8 years and I've just not been 14 enough to know.
Yeah, according to my nephew, it's been a thing for at least 4 or 5 years. So,
all right,
good. Glad we got that sorted out.
Yes. Got to get your timelines right.
Yeah, Christoph's asking. I wonder if any adults are watching. Well,
Yeah.
you wait for the after show.
Absolutely.
it'll just be this panel again, but with a lot more swearing.
It's
sounds good.
I was going to say it's either swearing or my really butchered ASMR, which sounds both sexy and threatening at the same time.
Is that what the Daddy Longlegs is for? Is the AMSR later? Just like walking across your microphone?
If it survives that long. If someone
So
could
Andy,
tell me where it is, that'd be great.
If you spot it on the stream, just tell Tommy in chat. It's a 30-second delay, but I'm sure he'll get it.
Everybody spam the spider emoji if you see the spider getting closer.
Oh gosh.
Our new mascot.
Just
And you were
type in
talking about
caps.
like, or Kate, you mentioned like the crafting discussion was about large things being collaboratively built, which reminds me, talking about Minecraft again, about the Minecraft server I was on for a bit, where my friends would come on and we would make stuff together. But I would always get like super insecure because other people would be contributing much cooler or more than I was. And do you get that in this kind of collaborative crafting communities as well?
Yes, absolutely. So there's definitely a fear that what you make isn't going to live up to what everybody else makes, or when you get it all together, you're like, oh God, mine really stands out. But the community is so like supportive, and it doesn't. Overall, you end up feeling better about it just because you bring it in, you're like, oh, this is so terrible or whatever, and then everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's so great, like look at how it works together. And it's definitely one of those things where the whole is better than the parts, probably. So,
And if you have a lot of different systems that are kind of intentionally designed, will often build kind of niches into things, or project will develop niches. So you get like a whole environment where some people are making giant monumental decisions or kind of organizing other people, but then you also have kind of these little dip in, dip out interactions. So we had a spreadsheet party yesterday. I figured we probably at some point going to bring that up.
Yes.
But we had a Google Sheets party, and I can describe what a Google Sheets party is, but everybody can interact with this giant Google spreadsheet in whatever way they want. And some people can build great things, but other people can just like put a single emoji in. And I think we had a lot of people who were just kind of like, one niche in the environment is people browsing around and saying in voice chat, wow, this is so interesting. Others can come in and maybe like color 1 or 2 cells, and others can like organize with other people to build something big. Some people can just drill down on their very bizarre installation somewhere in the spreadsheet. So it really allows people to decide what role in the ecology they want to fulfill in a way that like they feel comfortable with. You feel like there is something that you can do and that you're doing it right. And then you can like seamlessly move deeper and deeper and deeper into the whole of strange spreadsheet-based storytelling.
So it sounds like a spreadsheet is like a virtual quilt.
Yeah.
I haven't quilted enough. Are there sort of different roles that you can play in a quilting bee?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm working on a collaborative quilt right now, and there's one person that's organizing everything. Some people are making like one block, some people are making multiple blocks, then another person will sew them all together. Yeah, definitely. I'll stop now.
Fantastic.
Well, and one of the niches that we always forget in these things is just the appreciator, somebody to walk around and say like, wow, that's so good. And it turns out that's actually a very important part of the community.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think that would be me at this point. I think I'd be that person that would just sit back just from a distance and just kind of observe. Because like that, completely outside my wheelhouse, completely not my thing, but you got to respect that process, I think.
I've seen your hand turkey, Tommy. I think you got it in you.
A hand turkey. That's John Cena. That's it. I just killed the conversation.
Mike's like,
I'm just.
We're gonna just.
Before we get into like a weird kind of space. It's too early in the evening for that. No, as you know, we've got a packed schedule today, but we really appreciate both of you coming on. I've just told everyone in the chat, go and check out the spreadsheet party that Kate made. One of my highlights of FDG personally. It was super cool, and it's still there, still being added to.
Awesome.
Thank you both so much for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Well, great to see you.
Cool.
Alrighty. Well, that was it. That's already. So we've had a brand new thing here on FDG-TV. We're actually doing double correspondence because apparently just getting the opinion of one person is not enough because this is the internet. We need to harvest as many opinions as we possibly can in a very, very short period of time. So great to see people are hanging out and enjoying themselves. Laura has just said, wait till you see the mummy long legs. And I didn't need that, if I'm honest. And so let me just quickly check in on the schedule because Mike is currently just kind of really staring me down in the other screen. I don't know what he's doing. But so let's quickly check in. What we wanted to do is, next up, we wanted to actually catch up once again with our conference organisers. So once again, let's give a very warm welcome to General Chair of FDG 2020, Antonius Liapis.
Hey, Anto. Oh God.
Oh God. Oh. Call the thing. So we really apologise for this minor technical delay we had there. So as far as we know, Antonius is okay. Somebody gave him a shake and put some coffee in front of his face, and it looks like he's responding to it accordingly. Right, who are we actually going to bring in? I actually need to check now because we need to bring somebody else in. Oh no, that was it. That was what we were. Okay. So sorry, a little bit flustered after all that. What we're going to do is we're actually going to bring in a couple of the other members of the organisational committee, and hopefully they're not dead or suffering from a minor health emergency off the back of that. So Mike has gave me the green light. Please give a warm welcome to researcher and engineer at Model AI, who's also the programme chair for FDG 2020, Vanessa Volz, alongside Professor at University of Malta and also General Chair of FDG 2020, Georgios Yannakakis. Obligatory.
Hey, folks, welcome.
You look so lively and awake. And full of energy.
It's a great pleasure to be around you, the two of you especially. Thanks for the invitation. It's really a pleasure. And it's a great idea actually. Thanks for doing all this.
I'm grateful that you're still willing to tolerate our shenanigans after all these years. Because they're actually getting progressively worse. Because nobody, when everyone's back was turned, we put together a TV show.
So I was wondering if, for some of the people watching are either very young PhD students maybe, or maybe they're not involved in the wide world of academia at all. So I was wondering if you could both briefly give us like a 15-second summary of what the General Chair does and what the Proceedings Chair does.
Shall I start, Vanessa?
Yeah. Also program chair, but
Program Chair, sorry. I forgot
in the running order. Come on.
So listen, this is the second time I'm actually doing this for FDG. We have been doing this quite, especially with Antonius. We have been organizing a number of conferences. We organized FDG back in 2013 in Hania. Adonis was the local chair back then. I was the general chair. That was a great experience.
Yes.
And we decided to do it again, this time in Malta. Now, we never imagined how challenging it would be this time. This time was something out of this world. We had all these challenges with ACM. Don't show me ACM, but seriously, it was really challenging with all these changes on the last minute, with formatting, with papers, the way they should appear, and so on. And Adonis did an amazing job there. And then we had the pandemic. And you can't imagine, well, I mean, all of us here have been in the organization, so you actually can imagine how hard it was to actually run this as smoothly as possible. So yes, what's the role of the general chair? You should ask Antonis for this particular one, because he did most of that. I did a tiny bit of the general chairing, but basically talking to all these people, orchestrating the process. Vanessa.
Right. I think Penny and me as program chairs were pretty shielded from all the big chaos, or we scooted by the gray hairs. But what a program chair does is having some sort of oversight about all the papers that are in the program. So I got to read through all the track chairs' comments, and thankfully, everyone did really great work. So that went pretty well, but it's pretty cool to have an overview of all the papers that exist. And I haven't been to FTG that often, but it's really cool to see the breadth of topics. So that's pretty cool.
It's actually, I'll second that as well, because given I was workshop chair, usually I would have had, I think once we actually did all the review process, working with all the actual workshop submissions that we had, approving them, putting them into process, and then getting their paper, calls for papers going out and bringing that in. And then certainly quite a lot was centralized at the point when COVID really made things bad, or just was adding this huge extra level of complexity. And I think that helped minimize the amount of additional headache or stress that everyone was having. Although I do believe that all it did was actually compound it largely on Antonius and Georgios' heads, respectively. But it meant that we had this more kind of central organization position and perspective. So I think what eventually happened was then delegation was rolling back out afterwards. It's okay, we've sorted out all these big issues. Now we can actually just get back to the process of putting the program together, which was terrifying, slightly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just quoting the Bono here, which is a thought leader about creativity. When you actually have, who is Maltese, by the way, and when you have challenges like that, it's or constraints like that can be seen as an opportunity for further creativity. So we wouldn't be able to have things like this, these wonderful ideas with Discord, with FDG-TV, if it weren't, we didn't have all these constraints. We had to be more creative. So I think overall it was, I'm a bit biased again, but I think it ran really smoothly despite the challenges, and we came up with new ideas that we can use in the future. So I'm quite happy with the outcome.
I just saw in the chat, FD Georgios.
I think the thing that we've heard, and we're going to be talking about this later, me and Tommy, but the thing that we've heard repeatedly throughout this week is people saying that this was the best remote conference they attended all year. So thank you both for the huge efforts, and thanks to Penny as well. Penny couldn't be here because of the rather wild time zones involved, but she was the other program chair along with Vanessa. And of course, we'll hear from Antonius possibly later if we're lucky, if we can rouse him from his slumber.
If someone could just check in that he's had all his vitamins and everything else.
And his Red Bull.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll hopefully catch you around outside. Oh, well,
Vanessa.
I brought my pet to show up Tommy because of the stream yesterday.
Fantastic. Okay. Let's get a close up. Can we get closer? Oh, that's beautiful, Vanessa. This is amazing. There's a bit of greenery for the evening. We're all in quite empty white boxes, so that's perfect.
Brought to you by IKEA. Yes, Christoph
Thanks for
Saldo has
coming.
just said this is the best online FDG ever.
Ever indeed.
You've just set the bar incredibly high, I think.
With your help. Thank you so much, Tommy. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you both so
See
much.
you
Thanks
soon.
for coming on the show. See you soon.
Alrighty, excellent. So I have had confirmation that Antonius is okay, mostly because he's currently in the production Discord telling me to hurry up. I think he just didn't want Georgios to hog too much of the spotlight. But yes, thank you, Vanessa, for bringing a bit of greenery to the proceedings. So next up, I'm just quickly checking in with the chat. Actually, we've got a bunch of greenery. We've got obligatory honks, which is great. And what we're going to do next is we're going to get on our first of our two guests. Once again, we have two guests this evening. So first up on the docket is our first guest. She was presenting her research earlier today at one of the tracks. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. PhD student at Fondazione Bruno Kessler and the University of Trento. Please give a very warm welcome to Enrica Loria, everybody.
Hello.
And of course, obligatory applause and honks.
You are still muted, Enrica. I just
Hi,
missed that.
everyone.
Yeah, hey. Welcome.
Thank you.
Sorry,
How
I
are you,
completely froze.
No, don't worry. No.
I'm
How's it
tired.
going? How was your day? How was your presentation? Did it all go smoothly? Are you calm
Yeah.
and feeling better?
Yeah. Like a little technical issue, but that's part of the game. But yeah, other than
Of
that,
course.
it was great.
That's fantastic.
It's
Yeah, it was
particularly if you're like on the last day as well, and it's like you're approaching. I mean, I've been there a couple of times where you're like one of the latter talks, and it's a case of like your energy levels are maybe like we were already talking about our energy levels at the conference, and maybe you're beginning to dip slightly. And I guess it's a little bit different in this situation, but if you're actually going to be there in person, you're maybe like, oh no, I need to get pumped for this. But actually, I sat in on your presentation earlier, and I thought it was really interesting. So for everyone else who is not familiar, this was reading between the lines towards an algorithm exploiting in-game behaviors to learn preferences in gameful systems, and it was noted as an exceptional paper. And but for everyone who hasn't had a chance to check out the presentation, can you tell us a little bit about what you were doing in this project?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, at the core of my PhD, there is this gamified system that is running in Trento, the city where I'm doing the PhD in. And its main purpose is to get people to move more with sustainable transportation means.
Mm-hmm.
So they can track their movement within the city, they can participate in challenges. And challenges is again at the core of the game because they can be personalized in some ways. And what we did in this project with my advisor was to use a reinforcement learning, I would say like algorithm, because it was a feasibility study. So we worked with offline data, but basically we were using players' activity to learn their preferences in an inexplicit way. So they didn't have to express those. So yeah, that's the first step into that. So what next, we're gonna bring that online inside the game and try to test it also with more game elements and stuff.
It was quite interesting because the game itself was play and go, so it's like a walking and exploration app. So you're trying to get people to move around a little bit more. With regards to because that's quite an interesting project to be thinking about, particularly at this point in time, as people are trying to find ways to get outside more, to exercise, and maybe just get a change of scenery. Because particularly, I mean, I know for myself, so I live about 2 blocks north of where I live is country. It's all countryside. And I try to go out walking or running out there every couple of days just to really help me like kind of disconnect from everything else. And so I'm wondering, do you think that there's going to be... Well, I guess one thing is when you were so with this project, I'm just watching Antonius post GIFs in Discord, and it's really distracting me. Stop it! I'm trying to ask a serious question. What potential do you think this has, particularly at this point in time, to really help people in these situations and kind of provide novelty? I guess right now, because it's something that we probably desperately crave.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, also not in COVID time, we found that people actually are moving more. For instance, if they have challenges, they will walk more or bike more in the evening. So it's not only about a positive behavioral change, because that's the main target. But if you have to take the car to go to work because it's very far away, we cannot pretend you to walk there. But still, if they go out and move more, that's still a positive thing, because maybe
Certainly.
they like it and they get used to it and they start doing that whenever it's possible. So yeah, definitely that is a factor. And actually, we have like yearly campaigns for this game, and we're about to start another one soon. And so that's the goal. And also, as we have also included multiplayer challenges there, we can see how peer pressure and social contagion works there. And yeah, and we are also bringing them into the schools. So basically, students in high school, they can form teams within classes and compete among each other.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah.
Is there a difference to how like children and adults respond to these kinds of techniques?
I will say so. Probably, I don't know. I'm imagining it because we haven't started yet. But
course.
if you are in your class, there is already this kind of competition between classrooms,
yeah.
right, in high school. And so, yeah, that I guess will be a strong motivator. Whereas adults are more stuck into their habits.
Yeah, I know what
A
that's
little bit more difficult, but yeah.
That's a familiar. That sounds right. So personalization and this kind of intense understanding of the player is something that so many people are interested in. It's sort of like one of the holy grails of games research. Is there a particular game or developer you would love to work with to apply your skills and technology to? Is it like a dream game that you'd love to be able to apply yourself to?
Oh, wow. There is a great question. I mean, I wouldn't define myself like the greatest gamer because I'm not skilled at all. But what I found out, when you start working with player types and modelings and stuff, you start thinking what gets you going. And actually, I started because I wanted a game that actually could adapt to me in the best way possible. And what I found out is that I'm a huge fan of board games. And what I found out that I'm very moved from the social aspect, but I'm also a competitive person, and I'm kind of an achiever. So if I can find at least two of those factors in a game, then I got attached to it. For instance, one of the games that I really loved was Kingdom Hearts. And so, yeah, this kind of thing. It's weird. I can not really answer your question. But yeah, I mean, my main purpose in general for my research is to actually apply it in the industry if possible.
I think that's an amazing answer and a great reason to get involved. I think these personal stories of why we end up working on these problems, and I think to make a game that you yourself would want to play is amazing. I think that's fantastic, isn't it, Tommy?
Absolutely. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to quickly ask you about your paper at COG. Just a few weeks ago, given that this was a telemetry project that was built around, was it Crucible matches in Destiny, and you were looking at social interaction and kind of the impact of influencers. And given that my cousin is a massive Destiny 2 fan, she's like a guild leader and everything, I would be in the doghouse if I didn't ask about this. Can you tell us a little bit more about this? Because I watched the short video that you put on YouTube and it sounded amazing.
Cool. Sure. Yeah, that was an exciting project. That was with my advisor again, but also Joanna Pirker from the True Graz and Anders Graken from the University of York. And actually, we were looking at influencers in Destiny. So that's actually in another work, they started to look for influencers in Tom Clancy's The Division that time. But we try to find, basically what they did was to find central nodes in the graph network. And so basically players that had a lot of connection. And in these works, in our work, we try to use another approach that you can find in social network analysis literature, where basically you analyze players' behaviors and see who tends to emulate others, and so who is emulated by others. And so we developed that algorithm, and we tried to find influencers within the network. And the weird thing is that, sorry, am I interrupting?
No, please go ahead.
Okay. No, the funny thing was that the semantic influencers, how we call them, are not central at all in the network. Rather, they have fewer connections but very strong. So they reinforce influence in time because probably they have strong friendships or something else.
That's fascinating. So they're not these people who are like super popular and they're in the center of everything.
Yes, it's something like Twitter or Twitch or YouTube influencers, which are the most visible ones, are not the ones that actually influence the in-game behavior, which is something different. Yeah.
So when you say that they were emulating one another, like how does that manifest in the game? Is this play styles? Is it cosmetics or like emotes that they're using? Or
no. It actually is way simpler than that. Just activity level. So they play more because that players play more. So retention. And the strength of this approach is that with the semantic influencer, you can basically measure any behavior. So we were interested in retention for to be comparable with the other work. But if you're interested in other kind of influencer, you just use other features to analyze the behavior.
Very cool.
Really fascinating. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So how did you enjoy your week at FDG? Was it a good time, or was there any particular things that stood out? Any talks you saw that you really enjoyed? Any?
That was actually great. It might be, obvious, but I was very fascinated by the paper that then actually became the best paper.
Yes.
So yeah, that was a very cool paper, but it was also a very stressful week because of Kai deadlines. So I tried to. I didn't see as much as I wanted to, but yeah, I catch up.
Yeah, I think probably a lot of people in the chat can sympathize. I think there was a lot of suffering this week for the Kai deadline.
In fact, I think there's a lot of sympathy, and then of course there's Anne Sullivan, who's currently in the chat harassing me because she's saying you've finally started going to the talks. I've been to quite a few of them. It's just very, very difficult, and I was prioritizing our guest's talk today. I thought that was very important. So also because it sounded really interesting. Anywho, we'll have to wrap up there. But Enrica, thank you very much for joining us. It's been very interesting and very cool to chat to you for a bit and to find out a little bit more about your research.
Thank you so much for having me.
I hope you've had a great week. And yeah, we'll hopefully catch you around in the Discord and elsewhere in the coming days.
Absolutely. Sure. Thanks for coming on, Enrica.
Bye.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much to Enrica. She was absolutely a fantastic guest. And then let me see, I'm just quickly going back down through our current lineup. Mike is currently staring at me somewhat intently off camera. But yes, we still have one. I know you're not, I'm joking. We still have one more guest this evening, and then we have a little bit of extra correspondence just to wrap up. And we're just quickly checking in with the chat. Anne is currently harassing me again. Kate is currently contemplating where the spider has went, who's actually apparently going to defend my... This is getting very complicated. Right, let's actually just get on to the more important thing, which is our final guest of the evening, but also our final guest of this season of FDG-TV. It's very exciting. So please give a warm welcome to, and hang on, I've got to read out every single one of these titles, and it's going to take me a second. The Professor and Vice Chair of Serious Games and Computational Media at UC Santa Cruz, the Chair of the Game Analytics and Visualization Track at FDG 2020, Co-Organizer of the Workshop on User Experience of Artificial Intelligence in Games. Please give a warm welcome to Magy Seif El-Nasr.
Thank you.
Welcome, Magy.
Appropriate applause and honks.
We can't hear these still, but the audience are enjoying
You'll
them.
never get to hear them, but it's not...
Well, no, it's sad.
It's not about you.
Thanks so much for coming on, Magy. I take it you must have had a busy week with all of this track sharing and the workshops and the papers. You're on so many papers as well.
Yeah, it was been a busy month or a year, more like it.
How was your track, first of all? Like, were all the papers going well, and were there any highlights or anything like that? It seemed like a really, really cool track, and we both of us caught a couple of papers from it.
Yeah, it's been great to actually see all this work about visualization, clustering, profiling, and prediction as well. So it was nice to kind of see all of these different compositions. It's a pity that we didn't get that many papers. I would love to have seen more of people's work that may have basically went into other tracks or maybe other conferences. And then I brought up ethics, and of course there was no question. So yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, we're on the delays are overlapping in a funny way sometimes. So I think, this is one of those things where, as you say, in a funny year like this, the papers go to various places, or they end up more in one place than others, things like that. But were there any papers that stood out in the track that you wanted to mention here?
Yeah, there are a number of them, actually. One of them, for example, was looking at how I can visualize engagement over time. And we, both me and my student were like thinking, oh, can the users see that? And what happens when the users see that, right? So that was, they didn't do a study on that, but we wanted to follow up and see if they would like to collaborate on something like that. That was kind of interesting. There was also the one that got a lot of questions afterwards about predicting decks for Hearthstone. And that was kind of an interesting one. It would be nice to kind of see more follow-up studies on like what happens when you, with that good prediction, what's the implication of that from a user's perspective. And there are 2 papers that were about profiling and different methods of profiling. And it would be interesting to also see how that compares with the different profiling methods that we currently have in the field.
One of the things that was really, it struck me actually, because we go away and we're prepping on who we're going to bring on as guests and like what they're bringing to the conference and stuff, and just looking at the range of papers you have, as well as your involvement in the tracks and the workshops and stuff. The thing that got to my mind is just managing the chaos of all of that. Like, sort of, you've got this research group with all these really diverse research interests, and then trying to make sure you balance all that, and then say, okay, well, we're going to tackle this conference and this conference. Like, how's that been right now? Has that been easier or harder, do you think, given like the current, the lockdown situation and this move to the kind of digital conferences and what have you?
So I have that background for a reason. It was very chaotic for a lot of times, but it's not just fires that are in the projects, but also fires outside, like the California fire when I first moved there. So there was a lot of outside influence as well, but I have a lot of great collaborators, and I want to shout out to Jishen and Casper, who are amazing, and Seth Cooper, who are all amazing collaborators. And so they are very critical about different work, and I work also with a lot of really good students from Drexel as well as from Northeastern, and some that have moved with me to UC Santa Cruz. So I work with a great group, and I think that's managing the chaos a lot better. A lot of my students are amazing at helping out and helping each other out as well.
It's really good to hear, like fostering that kind of community where it's not just you managing, but everyone kind of helps each other. That's the key to a great group, right? That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I guess it's the way as well. I had a kind of community like that when I was doing my PhD, even though we were completely disparate subject matter as well. Like I was one of only maybe 2 people that were games based, but everyone was different forms of AI. And even if you can just have that kind of common ground, to kind of find a way to kind of support one another and help each other, or at least have enough of an understanding of what one another's work is to be devil's advocate, or listen to the first pass on a conference talk, or look at the first draft of a paper or something. That's like a really wonderful community to have. It's what's going to get people through the door at the end, I think, ultimately.
We have several people in the group that didn't come from a games background, like my new postdoc, who's basically comes from engineering. And I don't know how much games he played, but as soon as he entered the lab, they're like, wait, you don't play, hey, here, there is this that you have to play, and then there's this that you have to play. And so he was actually interested in coming to the FDG because he's like, this is the first games conference, but everybody's telling me that my time, my productivity is gonna go way low now that I'm gonna start playing games. But, yeah,
It's
so
okay.
Your productivity will go up eventually because then you'll study more games and then you end up spending more time researching games than you do playing them.
Yeah.
That's my theory.
So we wanted to spend a little bit of time drilling down on some of the work that you published at FDG as well. So there was one in particular that I think me and Tommy both really enjoyed the title of, as well as everything else, which was, and this one, you mentioned Casper, working with Casper earlier. So this was the And Then They Died paper with a lot of authors on it. This was Erica Kleinman, I believe, is the first author on that. So could you tell us a little bit, and the audience here, just tell us a little bit about this work, because it's super interesting, I think, to both of us.
Sure, yeah. So we have been working on figuring out how to analyze player behavior, specifically not narrowing things down to like abstract or aggregated values like number of kills, number of moves, and so forth, but mostly looking at granular data. So a lot more sequential decision-making data. Of how actions have happened and how sequences of actions have happened, how the situation also influences that. So the question was, how do we do that? And so the first study was to look at qualitative using some of our visualization techniques. And then me and Erica and all the other authors that are working in the paper have all kind of come together and thinking, well, maybe we should look at ways of helping the labeling approach with the qualitative work by doing some more sequence analysis using the other methods that people have done in sequencing, kind of like looking at either visualization or doing some clusters with sequences. So that then helps stimulate labels and also may help unbias the labels that somebody might bring in as a qualitative researcher. And so this is where the idea for that paper came in. And so many different people were kind of interacting, but Erica led the research and led the work.
And this kind of thing is super impactful for the games industry, right? Because this kind of analysis is really important, and making it easier to do could potentially really change the way that this kind of data is crunched, right?
Yeah. And I'm not sure if all the different companies will probably adopt that approach. It's hard. And especially we were looking at also the qualitative aspect that is still embedded inside the process. So it's a human in the loop process, which takes a lot longer to analyze. But I think in discussion with Alessandro, I'm also working on a book that hopefully will get published by the end of the year. It's a sequel to the game analytics, but it's more about game data science, and it's more approaching it as a textbook. And one of the book chapters was really about sequence analysis, because we felt that this is an important method, especially that Alessandro Canosa is also a collaborator, and he ran a study, I think, with several other collaborators to look into what happens when you bring in sequence analysis versus aggregate data analysis. And have designers use both and then tell us which ones are more insightful for a design process. And of course, the sequence analysis one was much more insightful. And so he published, I think, on that work, and that stimulated a lot of discussions around sequence analysis.
I think we're at this really interesting kind of turning point, I think, particularly with analytics, that at first it was a more kind of high level overview of kind of general trends or patterns in like larger communities of players, but been able to now bore down into these more kind of specific contextual situations and pull real meaning out of that. And I think that really helps not just establish where, if the game is actually meeting like some sort of design or authorial intent, but also what players are potentially gathering from that as well. I think, like, from the outside, it seems like a really exciting area of research, and it seems to be getting more and more diverse and also richer, like with every passing year.
Yeah, it is still a field our subfield that is growing, right? So at first you see a lot more aggregations and looking at trends, and then after that you get a little bit more and more granular. And I'm seeing the field going hopefully in that direction.
So, look, oh, sorry, Mike, please go ahead.
No,
I'm hogging.
No, I was just going to say, you also wrote, and you mentioned in your introduction as well today, about ethics as well, and how this is like a difficult topic that you want to talk more about. And I wondered if you wanted to say a few words about the paper that you published, I believe, at FDG, or your general views about this kind of relationship to the research going forwards.
Yeah, so when we put together the book on game analytics, that was the first question that some people in the audience, I think at FDG probably asked, is what about ethics with all of this data? What about privacy? And at the time, we were still trying to figure out how to do things. So we weren't really thinking about, well, okay, let's talk about ethical concerns and a little bit more deeper, like what is the ethical concerns? But as we worked a lot with data, we know that there is a lot of, like, for example, expert players play a lot more, and so you get more data on them than novice players, right? And that will have gender issues and gender inequality as well. If you're using a lot of data, like hundreds of data on a specific group, and only like tens of the other group, then all your predictions and all of your recommendations will be based on that massive group because you're using statistics, right? And so the issue of individual differences and issue of marginalization becomes really important. And this is where we basically, after working with data a lot, seeing how do we combat that issue from a technical perspective, because you can do a lot of things with regulation and policy. But from a technical perspective, this is why we're taking a look at like how do we embed in qualitative work, sequence analysis, more granular data, so that we can actually uncover some of these small details that may be just brushed aside because of statistical techniques that we use.
It's fantastic stuff.
Definitely something to be thinking about, I think. Like, definitely something to be thinking about, particularly as these games are becoming more and more invested in these kind of data-driven models as well, that you want to be able to cater to different audiences, or kind of at least acknowledge that these audiences exist, and it isn't just one stereotype that you have for any particular game, that you want to be able to recognize how different people engage in these spaces. And I think it's super important now that we catch that rather than trying to go back. But also, particularly because, games have historically got a bit of an issue with assuming their audience base, I think, for the most part. So finding ways to actually capture that in data, and then ensure that we're then going to build games in a more kind of acceptable and open and amenable way, I think is much more exciting for me, certainly. I think it's something that we should be aspiring towards. So, Magy, I just feel inadequate when I'm looking at everything you've been up to just at this conference alone, and all that. I mean, all we've done is just sit here and talk rubbish on the internet. What's next for yourself? I'm hoping you're going to take a few days off, but what's next for you?
Well, my birthday was also on Wednesday, so we have celebrated on Sunday, and then we are yet to celebrate again on Sunday and hopefully Saturday. So
Nicely done.
Take the weekend to kind of just go and explore also California now that the air quality is better, so we can go to different beach places. So yeah, after that, I think we still have several projects that are in collaboration with different partners. With Jishen, for example, we're looking at the open player modeling, and I think she talked a little bit about that, and looking at reflection, learning by reflection, by having users actually see their own data. So this gets at also ethical issues of like how to make things transparent so that users can see their own models, and then from there, how do they learn from it? So that's a project that a number of my students are also working on, including Erica. And another project that we're also looking at is how to understand intent and behavior from, or higher level behaviors from data. That way we can include things like theory of mind as a way to kind of make AI systems a little bit better collaboration, maybe assisting users in multiple ways within creation of games as well as within the analysis of games. And so this is just 2 projects, and I have like 5 others, but I think this is enough.
Well, it sounds like when we get the Netflix money and the Netflix special comes rolling in, we know who to call for a follow-up, because it sounds like you'll have plenty to talk about with us. Absolutely.
Sure, yeah.
So Magy, I hope you really enjoy your birthday weekend. your second one, and also begin to get to enjoy more of your local surroundings. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, this is great.
Oh, sorry, I brought you back in.
Sorry, we cut you off then.
I cut off too aggressively. We're at the end. That's what it is.
It's our pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on, Magy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, there we go. I'm just far too aggressive. Also, so once again, a warm happy birthday to Magy. This has been a fantastic evening. We've had so many lovely people come and chat to us, and I'm just quickly checking in with the chat to see what's happening here. Also, I keep forgetting that my chat occasionally runs a little bit slow for some reason. I have to refresh my chat periodically just to check in and see what's happening. Zumba Pop, German Science Basement sounds like some underground music scene. I don't even know what's going on here. But anyway, fortunately, we already have our next correspondent who we can jump straight over to next. And thankfully, it's a little bit of a slightly more acceptable time to have our guest on this evening, or rather this morning, for them where they are. So please give a warm welcome to the General Chair of FDG 2021, Allan Fowler. Of course, obligatory
Allan.
Honks and claps for you. How you doing, Allan? You feeling a bit more awake since we saw you last?
Yes.
So you were in the closing session today, right? Announcing next year's FDG.
Yeah. It was very brief.
It was 4 a.m. I believe when you came in to join.
Yeah.
My goodness, we really appreciate you coming on now.
Not a problem. This is a lot easier.
So for those of us who aren't sure, kind of when did you start pitching this? Like, how far back has this been in the works?
Gosh, that's a good question, actually. I think the society put out the call for hosts for 2020 and 2021. I would say maybe 2018, around there. And that's when we first proposed it. And we got the green light sometime last year, 2019. And so, and since then we're initially talking about hosting it in Savannah, Georgia. But for me, it's a bit more of a commute now. So we had some concerns about the effect of the humidity. Anyone that's been in Georgia around August knows it gets a little bit sweaty down there.
Right.
And so with talking to Jim Whitehead, we talked about different sites. And as much as I'd like to get everyone down to New Zealand, which is really nice weather this time of year, it's not humid at all. It's a bit of a commute for everyone else. And so we sort of compromised on say, hey, it needs to be East Coast America, not necessarily USA. And I said, well, what about Montreal, Canada? And that sort of ticks lots of boxes for us in terms of visas for people, immigration, weather. The location is reasonably close to Europe. It's a nice little city. I like it a lot. And although it's a bit more of a commute for me, but it seems to work out for most people. So hopefully it'll be in real life, and we'll get to see Montreal for anyone who hasn't been there.
Yeah, so we've got it down as Montreal, Canada /online at present. So I guess it's and that's the I mean, well, we already spoke with Georgios earlier. You've already got this horrible situation where it's okay, we need to start preparing for a potential physical conference, but also what happens if we then fall back into online. And I mean, how's that been for you now? Because I imagine that so much of the physical location preparation's already been well underway.
Actually, no, we've done very little in terms of the physical location because we're really keeping an eye on what's going to happen with COVID-19.
Right.
We've sort of scouted a few locations and got an idea of where we'd like to physically be, but at the moment we've just pretty much put a city down for everyone, so that they can think about, the potential of going there. Our call at the moment is hybrid, so it will be both online and in real life, hopefully. But if the COVID-19 flicks either way, then we might hope to be able to offer it in real life. And I think we'll make a decision as to the physical location, that is the hotel, early next year.
Okay, fantastic. Earlier on the Discord, you put out a call for volunteers as well.
Yeah.
And there's also a channel on the Discord now as well for FDG 2021. So, I just wanted to ask you, other than writing papers, which of course everyone should do, is there anything you'd like to tell the community to do to help you for next year, or to, get ready?
Yeah, definitely. We definitely need more volunteers. I know everyone is probably, just getting a slight sigh of relief after this one's done and dusted, and the last thing they want to do is pick up another call for participation. But we definitely need as many volunteers as we can get. It helps the community, it helps ourselves, and I think it's an important role to keep the conference moving forward. We've got a couple of spots that we really need help with. We've got a great team already, and some wonderful tracks that we've got planned, and we're really excited about it. We're looking for someone to look after our doctoral consortia, which is a high priority at the moment. And we're also looking for a local chair, someone to help the local arrangement should we actually go into a physical space. The commute for me, I think it's about a 23-hour flight all up. So I'm trying to get someone a little closer if I can.
Not easy to pop over for the weekend just to quickly, tick a few things off the to-do list.
To taste the catering and check it's okay, right?
Yeah. And on top of that, we have mandatory quarantine on arrivals coming back to New Zealand, so I'd have to go into quarantine for 4 weeks, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a bit of a burden at the moment. So yeah, if we have anyone that's really keen to help out, we'd warmly welcome them, and they can reach out to me or chat to me on the Discord channel. And Alessandro and Ali Aria are the program chairs, and they're also trying to recruit program committee members as well. So if people want to contact me or contact Alessandro or Ali, then yeah, that'd be really great.
You just reminded me, I wanted to give a shout out to Hart McKernitz, who ran the doctoral consortium this time. We couldn't quite get him on the TV show. We didn't have enough slots, but he did an amazing job. And running the doctoral consortium is really rewarding. You get to meet new PhD students and help them, give them some mentoring. Looks lovely on your CV as well. So definitely someone sign up for that. I think that's a great thing to help out.
Actually, my first FDG was the doctoral consortium. And, it was fantastic, and I highly recommend it for any upcoming scholars to submit something. But we need someone to organise that and share that, and it provide them with the mentoring. I think it was Gillian Smith that did a really fantastic job. I helped with her group in Boston, I think, from memory, and they had mentors talking to doctoral candidates about their career, about their journey, and I thought it was a really great idea. So yeah, I'd recommend it for both people submitting, it's really helpful, and for anyone that wants to be involved in bringing up the new generation and helping them with their future.
Speaking of submissions, we've got a couple of deadlines, I think, already at the conference that people should be aware of?
Yeah.
You could look this up yourself at FDG2021.org. And there we go.
Yeah,
there we go.
If you go to FDG2021.org, you can see the dates. But for those of you who are watching the channel there, we've got the workshop proposals early December with the panels as well, with the competitions as well. The actual papers late January, and I'm not sure why we put April Fool's Day as the notification. Maybe someone's got a sense of humor there somewhere.
Oh, please keep that.
Hopefully people won't forget it then. And the demos and posters are mid-April, and the DC is around the same time. As you see on the website, we did have the conference dates the same as IEEE COG. That was just a really misunderstanding of our dates, but we've updated this. The website will be updated hopefully in the next 48 hours. We are planning for early August.
Great. Can I just say that I was in for the closing session, and watching Paolo Borelli's face as the date for FDG 2021 was announced was one of the funniest things, because I could just see him waiting for his fake background to swallow him up. I think that was what he was really hoping for at that point.
Amazing.
Well, actually, I don't know if anyone was watching my face, but my reaction was very similar. What? There was a few extra words that I said, but yeah, you probably guessed what they were.
So one thing I did notice over in our YouTube chat, which is related to FDG 2021, is there's been a lot of questions regards the reflection session, and I would be remiss not to ask at this point, given I do actually have the organizer for that track sitting as my co-host.
Do you want to take this, Mike?
Right, yeah, sorry. So Allan got in touch with me a few weeks ago to ask if I would share a new track at FTG, which has the very lovely title of the Reflections track. And the goal of this track is to solicit papers about things that didn't work out or that worked out a bit unexpectedly. So failures, perhaps, but unexpected results, dead ends, things that had to be put to one side, or that projects that kind of maybe got put to sleep or took a little bit too long. We want to hear about all of these experiences because they're actually super useful to help people avoid certain areas, to give insight into spaces that we don't get reported on. So it's this new thing where we really want to share the kinds of stories that you can't always put in a paper that requires a p-value of less than 0.0 or whatever. And I really love the idea when Allan mentioned it to me. I'm super excited. So I want all of you to bring out your dead projects and resurrect them and find those failure graphs and things like that, and tell us the story of them. That's what we want to do next year. So I'm super excited.
I've just got Monty Python stuck in my head now. Thanks for that. Bring it, you're dead.
So I stole that from a game jam that Emily Short ran, which was obviously referencing that as well. But she encouraged people to get half-finished game projects and kind of just publish them in a game jam. It was super good. And so hopefully we can get the same thing here.
So just before we wrap up this particular segment, we've got a couple of quick comments in the chat that I just want to point out. A lot of people are very grateful for not having a holiday time deadline for the papers. They greatly appreciate that. Miriam asks, what volunteer roles need filling? We all want to help.
Just email me that you're happy to help and we'll find a job for you.
That's a good answer.
Our priority right now is we really do need someone to look after the DC, and chat to Alessandro about what program chair tracks we need filling. There are a couple that need some extra people. So, any volunteers is a good volunteer. So just reach out to us and we'll find you something to do.
Fantastic. I'm super excited for next year.
Excellent. Well, Allan, thank you very much for coming on and joining us. I hope you get to enjoy the rest of your morning in peace. Maybe go back to bed for a bit. That might actually be a good idea as well. But we look forward to seeing you at FDG 2021.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
See you later.
Thanks, guys.
See you.
All right, here we go. Fantastic. Let me just have a quick look. Everyone seems really excited by this idea of the kind of failure track, the reflections track. I keep calling it the failure track. And in fact, Zumba Pup and I think we both have the same kind of British mentality toward it. He's like, I can definitely submit to that. I would actually just posit a paper, which is probably most of my academic career at this point. But right, we need to put this session to bed. I've just been told in the chat it is time to slowly roll out FDG-TV for one last special guest. He is brought back from the dead. He has got a clean bill of health, or as close to a clean bill of health as he possibly can have, considering that he's just finished helping organise a conference. Welcome back, General Chair of FDG 2020, Antonius Liapis. And you will, of course, get the obligatory honk.
Honk honk.
Is it honks? Right.
I'm not even applauding you. You're just getting... No, you know what? I'm going to give you the Mario World
Double honk.
Clear.
Oh no!
Ah, the thing that explodes my eardrums every time I rewatch the stream in the evenings.
There we go. Sorry, I
Welcome
did turn
back,
it down
Antonis.
a certain amount, but there you go.
We just
What's
wanted to
up,
prove to
buddies?
everyone you were okay. What is up
Okay.
with you, buddy?
What's up with your
How are
bad
you doing?
self?
Are you feeling relaxed?
I am relaxed now. It's over. I passed on all my perils to Allan, and no, I think it went all right. So everything is a-okay.
Well, I mean, we said it earlier, but I have never heard people say they enjoyed a conference as much as they said they enjoyed this one, which, given the circumstances, is pretty impressive. And I think
How many of them were bots?
only a few of them, really. I hardly had to make any this year. So
Really?
yeah, but no, seriously, you did a great job, and so did the whole team. Me and Tommy have thoroughly enjoyed messing around backstage with you throughout the week.
Yeah,
I think
most of my involvement is pretty much just coming in here and being the talent at night, and then a little bit of production, but just watching the chaos unfold in the kind of admin side of the Discord has been strangely hilarious, because everyone's kind of taken to it with the kind of the right energy, I think.
you underestimate the amount of gifts you have posted on the organizers only chat. But
So many side ducks.
we lost a few years of we lost a few years of our lives every time the video playing or a computer crashed or the entire neighborhood went down. But yeah, we also became very teenager in our use of gifts. So I'm overall it's a 50-50. But what are we here to talk about? I mean, I've left the
one thing
room, so production is over.
We're not getting any instructions, so I guess we don't know how we don't have anything.
Yeah,
no, so one of the things was that we wanted to thank some people, right?
But
So
now you said it, Anne's in the productions Discord.
Oh, it's
right?
Anne, our producer now.
No.
So one of the things that we wanted to do was thank some people, and a couple of people I just wanted to shout out in particular: David Melhart and Phil as well, Phil Lopez, and Renata as well. Like the people keeping the tech stuff running this week, solving every problem that came up, and being very cheery and making us laugh in the chat as well in the background.
The production.
There's a whole
Discord's
host of
been
people that we want to
invaded
thank
right now.
Well, I don't think any of them is hearing you, but I'm sure they'll appreciate it in the morning when they see the video. I'm the only one here.
That's okay. They've earned a rest.
I think it's safe to say, though, that all of our track chairs, our keynote speakers, our panelists,
Of course.
Yeah.
and of course, Antonius himself. I think we should probably thank you, like begrudgingly so, even somewhat, because you're a cantankerous old mayor, but you get the job done. Which I think is the
You know you're not getting paid, right?
Exactly. This is why I'm getting my shots in now before the contract appears, and then suddenly I got to play nice because there's money involved. There was actually one thing I wanted to share just before we finished up, was we actually got our first ever FDG-TV fan art, which was really nice.
Yes,
I'm just going to bring this up for you now. So the wonderful Miriam Ilitari, who came on as a correspondent for us earlier in the week, who is always painting. She's always putting together this wonderful piece. In fact, Miriam did this before when I did a couple of live streams a while ago. But there we go. We actually have our own FDG TV art, which is fantastic.
It was absolutely amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much to Miriam for that. And we also wanted to thank the community, right? Because the only reason this worked is because everyone is enthusiastic and in the chat and having fun. It was the same thing with the Discord. We can put up on as much as we want, but without everyone turning up and getting behind it and having fun, it just doesn't work. So we all wanted to.
And everybody that was eager to come on as well, right? So we had a backup, but we never used any of them really.
I have had to invite speakers to things in many things before, and I have never had so many enthusiastic responses.
Right.
Everyone turning up ready to go. Each person I think would have stayed on for an hour if we'd let them. It was amazing. The energy
Some of
was
them
so
did.
good.
Especially some Julian Tegeliuses. But,
Sorry, I'm just watching the Discord because Phil and David and Vanessa, I think, have just ran amok and they're just posting shows.
Mods asleep.
I've let them go. I've let them go.
I think one of the most important things to really stress is that even though he's not here, like Antonius is actually governing so much of what happens off camera. It's actually like a 3 to 4 man or woman production team to make every episode, and I just have the unenviable task of being the one that's always on camera.
And most of the time that you're blaming me, I'm sending you the most wonderful things, wrap up, guys, and then you're like, he's berating me. It's like, let's talk about behind the scenes stuff. Let's talk about it.
I think Alan Fowler's even getting in on it now. I just saw Alan Fowler is typing. Good grief. Well, with that, I think, gentlemen, we've earned a reprieve. I think it's maybe time to wind down FDG-TV. But with your permission, of course.
One thing.
Don't you want to? Yeah. Okay. Mike wants to have the discussion.
Just one more thing before we wanted to close out. So this thing that we did started off as a joke that Antonius took and ran with, and then brought Tommy on board, who was super enthusiastic, and then all of our hosts and the FDG organizing team and everyone. And we would love to keep doing stuff like this with different people and different places, different conferences. So we want to know like what you would want changed or added, more cats, less Tommy and Mike, whatever specific suggestions you have, replace Tommy and Mike with cats. We're really open to any suggestions.
Tommy, Mike, cat hybrids.
All right.
If you're on the FDG Discord, there is the feedback channel that works for this too. And if you're not at FDG, you can always tweet us as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I basically wanted to say what's next for FDG-TV. So you're basically touching upon that, right?
What would you like to be next, Antonius?
I would like to continue on this vibe. I think that this is the right vibe that we have, like, the light-hearted, yet scientific vibe, and the fact that we basically got people from all different tracks, different first-year PhD students, finishing PhD students, senior members of the community. It's important to give everybody a voice, and I think that was one of our criteria here. So this is not this is a heavily curated show that is not about peer review or about quality academics.
Exactly.
So we wanted to basically give people, something to talk about their cool research, and that's all that there is. We had a lot of people that could have made the show, and it's just a matter of choosing a right breadth to give to the viewers what FDG is like, right? It's not just the senior members of the community guiding it. It's not just the starry-eyed PhD students trying to burn everything down. It's a bit of everything. So we hope that we gave this kind of feel.
Yeah.
Don't know if the chat is exploding. I'm
mostly more honk. And
fair enough.
Tommy and Mike and Cats did actually get a vote.
And, we definitely did not get it right this time. We had to do the best we could. We didn't have all the time in the world, the hours, the budget, but we know we didn't get it right, but we're going to keep improving. And I agree with you. It should stay lighthearted. What we don't want is for, it to become like some kind of branded thing where there's like all of these sponsors that we are like beholden to and we have to do things for. And we want it to be as chill as possible.
You haven't signed that contract with Coca-Cola, have you?
Well, not yet. This is how you get it.
I honked for you. I pressed the honk button. Jeez. But I think what is critical to kind of express is that we didn't know exactly how we wanted this to run, but we had a couple of very clear ideas about who should be on. And we kind of talked about this a little bit backstage. One of the key things with our co-hosts was trying to find people who could actually survive the experience, like coming on here and sitting on camera for an hour. Sitting with me for an hour is a lot of work. And Mike and Antonius have an awful lot of patience for me. I think I give them drinking problems off camera. So
I've hidden mine.
But we really wanted to get the guests. The guests were the most important part. Our correspondents were the most important part. And what we hope that is this is a template that future FDGs can potentially adopt. We rework it, we revamp it, bring different people in on board to help make it a reality. But ultimately, it is an opportunity for us to say, hey, maybe we can actually do something like this elsewhere. And also, if you're another conference who's thinking about stealing the idea, Hit me up.
I think this is something which we should share as a community. Like, this should not be owned by a particular organization or conference. This is something that we can all do together, and I'm super excited to see more of this kind of friendly community kind of interaction in the future.
Excellent. Right, gentlemen, we should wrap this up. I'm gonna.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your service, both of you.
Love you both very much. This was a pleasure. Thank you.
I should have got the trumpet.
Right. Just a honk, man. Don't worry.
Honk us off.
There you go. Honked off. All right. Thank you very much, guys. Okay. Here we go. We're wrapping up FDG-TV. Thank you. I'm going to do a quick run of thanks that needs to be done here. I have got a very long list here, so I'm going to get through these as quickly as possible, but also to make sure that everyone gets the moment that they're due. Clear the throat. Okay. Thank you, first of all, to our co-hosts. Not only did we have Mike Cook, of course, who was part of our production team, but we also had Anne Sullivan and Julian Tigelis joining us. On top of that, also a thank you to all of our correspondents: Stefano Guileni, Miriam Elitari, Jethro Shell, Raluca Gaina, Christoph Salga, Kate Compton, Georgios, Yannakakis, Vanessa, Volz, Allan, Fowler, all of our guests, Anastasia Salter, Jijen Zhu, also congratulations on that Best Paper Award, Tom Betts, Lindsay Grace, Megan Charity, Raphael Kim, Enrica Loria, Magy Seif El-Nasr, and of course to our production team, Mike Cook, Antonius Liapis, and of course to all of you who have tuned in and supported this nonsense every night all this week. Once again, we hope you stay safe, we hope you have fun, and we'll see you all next time. Goodbye. Honk. You're still here. It's over. Go home. Or log off. Or go outside even. Wear a mask. But, I mean, what more do you want? I mean, we've done it. We've said nice things about you. I mean, right, that's it. I mean, look, I am actually wearing trousers. Who'd have thunk it?